As we light our chalice this morning, we invite you to stand as you're able. If you're on Zoom, please make sure you're muted. Shannon will post the words in the chat. Here in the sanctuary, as Reverend Gary lights the chalice, we invite you to speak aloud. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need. For these high purposes do we unite in worship. Please.
Foreign languages have never been my strong suit. I spent a lot of time studying French when I was in middle school, several years, but I still managed to send a waitress running, screaming from the room when I tried to order a meal in Paris. I switched to German when I was in college, and I just squeaked through my exams for divinity school, where the ability to sprechen auf Deutsch was considered a theological prerequisite. But words like Weltanschauung and Zeitgeist did not help me much trying to get a beer at Oktoberfest. When our son was about 11 years old, we took a trip to Korea, where he'd been born. And because we'd all been studying Taekwondo, we knew how to count in Korean. Hana, dual, set, net, tasut, yasut. And we could also say up chagi and dui chagi, front kick and back kick. Fortunately, we did not go anywhere near the demilitarized zone, where we were warned that any false word could set off an international incident. Spanish has been my project more recently, which employs the subjunctive to a much greater degree than English. The subjunctive occurs wherever there's any degree of ambiguity or uncertainty in what's being said. For instance, hopefully, Mary will come to the party next Friday. Ojalá María venga a la fiesta el viernes que vienes. Oh, she won't be washing her hair that night. But I've kind of given up on learning the subjunctive because it's very hard, and because all my statements in Spanish already have a high degree of ambiguity and imprecision anyway, so it just seems like an extra layer of confusion. And all these experiences have forced me to ask the question of how much vocabulary and grammar you really need to get around this world. And I've come to the conclusion that beyond a few obvious phrases, like, where's the bathroom, and do you take Visa, the successful traveler really only needs 4 basic words. 4 words. Hello, goodbye, thank you, and I'm sorry. These simple utterances will cover almost all the difficulties that are likely to confront the average tourist, whether you're visiting Iceland or India, whether you're speaking Farsi or Greek. And more than that, these 4 words cover most of the rudiments that you will need on your existential journey, the contingencies you might face in your wanderings through life. You won't need a Scrabble player's dictionary to navigate your turbulent youth or your midlife crisis, although it is nice to know that ah is the Hawaiian word for lava. You can have a very ample and satisfying existence without knowing that, but it is necessary to understand how to say hello. Now I have to backtrack and qualify that because it may surprise some of you to learn that our standard English greeting, hello, is a very recent vintage. The word didn't even appear in print until the middle of the 19th century. And it actually didn't come into common usage until after the invention of the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell thought we should answer our phones by saying, ahoy. Ahoy, it's pirate talk. But Thomas Edison decided to call his switchboard operators hello girls, and that settled the matter. Yet, the original meaning of this word hello was something much more like whiskey, tango, foxtrot, as in, hello, Gary, are you crazy? And this was an expression of surprise, alarm. It was a signal to stop and slow down and reconsider. Far older greeting, etymologically, is the salutation howdy, howdy, which is a contraction for how do you do, which comes closer to what I'm talking about. To navigate in this world, we need to be able to say, how do you do? A que pasa, a wie geht's, or comment allez-vous, that brings us into some connection and relation with other people in the wider world. Because it is all about engagement. It's about making connections. The Jewish thinker Martin Buber is one of my favorite philosophers of religion, and in his book, I and Thou, he suggests that basic words do not state something that might exist outside of them. By being spoken, they establish a mode of existence. Putting this same thought another way, the linguist Deborah Tannen makes a distinction between what she calls rapport language and report language. She suggests that women are much better at what she calls rapport language. They use conversation to forge interpersonal bonds, while men tend to engage in what she calls report language. They use their discussions mainly to convey information. Buber gives some fascinating examples of how so-called primitive peoples have vocabularies that are very rich in this rapport or relational form of communication. For instance, we say, far away. The Zulu have a sentence word that literally means, where one cries, "Mother, I am lost." And the Fuegians of the Yagan tribe, who live at the tip of South America, surpass our wisdom with a sentence word of 7 syllables that literally means, they look at each other, each waiting for the other to offer to do that which both desire but neither wishes to do, which sounds like a lot like the Republicans and the Democrats in Congress. You know. Buber goes on, we greet those we encounter by wishing them well, or assuring them of our devotion, or commending them to God. But how indirect are these worn-out formulas? Hail, no longer suggesting anything of the original bestowal of power. Compare these with the eternally young, physical, relational greeting of the kafir. I see you. Or he was writing in the 20s. He must have got this from the roaring 20s. It's American variant. I smell you. I personally like the Sanskrit namaste, which comes from the verb nama, which means to bow or to salute, while te means you, just as it does in Spanish and so many other variants of the Indo-European tongue. Wikipedia, that ultimate authority, explains that namaste literally means I salute your form, which implies an understanding that all beings in this existence are part of the surface phenomenology of Maya, and that beyond the surface, so to say, all beings are part of Brahman, the one ultimate essence that underlies all. I've also seen this loosely translated as, I greet that place in you where you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me. There is only one of us. This is the hello that we spend our whole lifetimes learning to say, and every person we meet, every time we come together, offers an opportunity to practice addressing that ultimate thou, who is the apex and convergence of every singular and unique you. So hello is one of the basic words we need. Thank you, and I'm sorry should be a little easier to grok, because life really is a continuous blessing. And Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you ever uttered were thank you, that would be enough. Gratitude is the art of savoring and appreciating this brief moment that we've been given. While repentance is necessary because we are always messing up. Maybe one of the most stupid lines among many from that ridiculous novel and movie Love Story was the bit about love meaning you never have to say you're sorry. You know? On the contrary, love, or being in a mutually healthy relationship, means that you've got to eat crow several times a day, often. This may have some of you wondering why I haven't included the phrase, I love you, among the other essentials we need in our traveler's kit bag. Te amo. Ich liebe dich, je t'aime. Well, I personally have found that I love you is not all that useful. Ojalá Maria venga a la fiesta. But I seldom seem to get invited to that particular party. And in marriage, it may be that the words thanks and I apologize have more staying power than any amount of pillow talk. Love, at least romance, is a feeling that comes and goes. But common courtesy, words like please and thank you and excuse me, these should be daily habits that express a fundamental respect and regard for one's partner. Gracias. Perdón. Entschuldige bitte. Dankeschön. Whether you're traveling the country of marriage or the workplace or friendship, you'll find these words to be endlessly useful and restorative. And this applies to congregations and fellowships like this one also. I've noticed that many of our churches use the language of beloved community to describe their core purpose and identity. But for me, beloved community suggests a level of intimacy and knowledge and care that maybe goes beyond what we can attain here with this crazy assortment of individuals we find in our Sunday morning gatherings. If this UU Fellowship of Durango is like most other Unitarian Universalist congregations I've been part of, you are a wonderfully weird and idiosyncratic crew. And as a targeted minister and an interim minister, working with congregations in various states of disarray and transition, I've also noticed how often relationships in our congregations go sour. Trust gets broken, boundaries get breached, people are mad at the minister or mad at each other, and they start behaving badly. And often the biggest challenge they face is just learning how to play together nicely in the same sandbox and be civil. Never mind loving your neighbor, just stop shouting at him. Or even worse, talking behind her back. Try to be a little kinder, a little less paranoid, a little more considerate. And Sunday morning becomes what it really should be, a place where we may or may not feel deeply attached and cathected and passionate about the person sitting in the next chair, but where it's least safe and interesting and comfortable for me to be me and for you to be you. Transitional ministers like me specialize in change. We relish it, we thrive on it, we step into situations that are dynamic, in flux, chaotic, often where there's been a change in leadership, frequently where the previous pastor has died or retired or been fired. And we help people deal, which comes to the last word in our vocabulary lesson, maybe also the most important, how to say adios, adieu. The Buddha taught that non-attachment is the key to release from suffering, to living in the present, to gaining some kind of wisdom or enlightenment, because impermanence is the nature of things. Life is transitory. Things have an ending. It's evanescent. Holding on too tightly to situations that are changing, this becomes painful and counterproductive. But I'm convinced that there is such a thing as good grief. There's such a thing as healthy heartache. Change creates anxiety. Loss produces tears. But the tears are part of the healing. The mourning is necessary for letting go. It forms the pathways for new living. Change feels risky and tough, but it opens up the space for fresh possibility to emerge. So as we gather in this place on our final Sunday morning together, bidding each other a bon voyage, what is it that you need? What do you need to say to move forward with creativity and grace? What are your losses from this past year that you need to name and honor and release? Not release from your memory, because there's always old lang syne. There's old acquaintance not forgot, but release from your need to hold fast. What are you grateful for? What unearned goodness fills your life? What are your regrets? Who have you hurt? How can the damage be repaired? Who do you need to ask for forgiveness? And finally, how are you going to give a hello, a glad greeting to this next leg of the trip? You know, Barbara Kuhlman's coming, but it's not just a new minister you're going to be encountering. This is another land. It's another country. It's an unexplored vista waiting to be discovered. It's as bright and lovely as anything in the Rhodes Scholar brochures. You're probably going to forget your toothbrush. Your flight's probably going to get delayed, but don't worry. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay for the savvy traveler who has hello, goodbye, thank you, and I'm sorry in their phrasebook. The trip is going to be worth the ticket.